You know, you come here every week expecting a smooth intro into how I'm going to talk basketball. But you know I'm going to talk basketball. So what's the point of the smooth intro? What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets, and today it's going to be another installment of the player preview series. As you can tell by the thumbnail, today we are going to talk about Pascal Siakam, the way these things work. I talk about why you should be optimistic about the upcoming season for the certain player at hand, which again in this case is Pascal. And then I follow it up with why you might be concerned, followed by some closing thoughts. That's it. That's the video style. That's how we're going to do this. Without further ado, let's go on and do this. Let's hop into the video. Kicking things off with the optimism. For all the talk of how Pascal Siakam had a down year last year, on paper, it was actually still fairly productive. Yeah, like his scoring was down a little bit, but the field goal percentage remained about the same. He actually had a healthy improvement in terms of his assist averages, and you could see on the court that his playmaking has actually grown and improved, so it's another little thing that he added to the bag. Obviously, Pascal was still a very good defender last year. There was a lot going right. I talk about this, I feel like, a fair bit on this channel, but there was a lot going right before the whole COVID thing hit the Raptors about mid-year, and that, I don't want to say that exclusively derailed the season, but it definitely played a big hand in derailing the season. So realistically, you know, the Raptors could have still been in playoff position last year, and Siakam, you know, was the main guy there. Obviously, he has kind of been the main guy ever since Kawhi left in terms of, I guess, offensively, even though obviously Kyle Lowry was there. And it's actually a really good segue into a recent interview that Pascal Siakam was talking about, where he, you know, is the max player. He's got the big contract, but with Kyle Lowry there, he never felt like the guy in Toronto. I don't know why this is just making me think of that whole meme where that Toronto guy hopped on like Katie's Twitter space or whatever and called himself a guy in Toronto. But Pascal is now a guy in Toronto. He's the guy in Toronto, on paper at least. Yeah, and with that, you potentially ask and you wonder whether or not this mental block that it seems like has been there a little bit for Siakam can potentially, you know, maybe if not disappear, but at least lessen, where because Siakam was maybe worried about where he fit into the team with Kyle Lowry still there, now if he feels like, you know, he is, you know, the main player on this team, that this is his team, maybe that allows him to play with a little bit more freedom. Maybe we don't see him as conservative in some of his decision making, and we see a more aggressive and just kind of loose version of Pascal Siakam that isn't afraid to go out there and try and take the game over. It's a different question of whether or not he can do that, and I will get to that later, I assure you, but obviously there's just more freedom for Pascal to be Pascal, and I think that can be a good thing for sure. The other thing is too, obviously with the way that the Raptors have been coming together with this Raptors roster, with the direction of the team, I think it's very clear that, obviously, I've talked about this again and again, a lot of these points, or some of these points at least, do get reiterated, but the Raptors are trying to build a defensive juggernaut. They clearly want a team where defense leads to easy offense, and that kind of system and that kind of play style actually really does benefit Pascal Siakam a lot. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Pascal Siakam is one of the more, if not most, athletic players playing that 4 spot, playing the power forward, and putting him in an up-tempo offense where you're turning a lot of defensive stops into quick offensive possessions. That will definitely serve Pascal well. Like, I don't think there's a better thing that could be happening for Pascal Siakam and Pascal Siakam's game and offense than playing in an up-tempo offense where the emphasis is on pushing the pace, getting quick, good looks, and, you know, getting your buckets early in the shot clock. I think it will help. I absolutely think it will help. If you're running up and down the court and just looking for easy, quick ways to attack the basket, Siakam will definitely be a huge beneficiary of that. And in that sense, yeah, his scoring can go back up because he's getting a lot of easy looks. he'll obviously have a chance to play make, in that quick push the tempo type of offense and potentially keep his assist numbers trending upwards. There's a lot to like basically about Siakam in an up-tempo offense. So the direction of the team and where it's going actually really favors Pascal's play style, which to me, frankly, is the biggest reason to be optimistic. Moving on to the reasons of concern, there's actually a fair balance here between the positives and the negatives, where there's a decent amount to talk about here as well. Ever since that Celtics playoff series where Pascal kind of got quote-unquote exposed, as the pundits would say, and where Jaylen Brown, and I mean obviously there were other defenders besides Brown, but Brown was really the main one, I would say, that took it to Pascal. But regardless, ever since Jaylen Brown, took it to Pascal, it hasn't been great. We talk about the mental block a little bit. I do genuinely think that has contributed a lot to Pascal, where that series kind of dampened his psyche a fair bit. Not that I'm a sports psychiatrist by any means, or somebody that's closely tied to that situation. I'm just making a observation based on what I see. That series took a toll on him, but more so, I think it just kind of exposed the flaws, or the obvious flaws, in Pascal's game at this point. And Pascal, having obviously entered into basketball and into playing basketball fairly late into his life, doesn't have the developed bag and doesn't have the developed skill set, particularly in the half court, that a lot of other players do. And that's 100% something that can be worked on, and I'm sure he has worked on it to whatever capacity that he can, with that shoulder injury, obviously, which is also something that I'm going to talk about, but one thing at a time. Ever since that flaw kind of got exposed, it seems like it's been more and more noticeable, with Pascal, that he is just not a guy that you want creating in the half court for your team as the kind of main player. And you can kind of compare him a little bit to Giannis here, where, not in the sense that, they're anywhere near the same player, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of people talked about this kind of similar concern with Giannis, and obviously Drew Holiday came and really opened up a lot of good playmaking on that team, where it got Giannis extra easy looks and buckets. The problem is, though, Giannis is, and frankly always will be, far more dominant with his athletic prowess than Pascal could ever dream of. And with no disrespect to Fred VanVleet, I don't know who on this team is really opening up that much in terms of playmaking for Pascal, where it's actually kind of the opposite, where, as we were talking about in the previous section with Pascal, his playmaking getting better for his teammates, he's actually relied upon to make the playmaking happen a lot, as opposed to being the recipient of the playmaking. So in that regard, unless he is just actively working on getting better in the half court, which I'm sure he is to some extent, that flaw remains a flaw, and it remains a very exposable flaw in Pascal's game, that once you slow things down, once you get them into the half court and you're not just pushing the tempo, for situations where Pascal can obviously attack and be aggressive and be, a very good scorer in that regard. In the half court, when it comes to scoring, he's pretty meh. I think that's more or less my opinions, I guess, on that. It's just he's very meh in that regard. Past that, there's a lot of extracurriculars, I guess, to talk about here, where obviously he had the shoulder injury, and on one hand you can actually kind of look at that and debate how much of the shoulder injury contributed into maybe Pascal not playing as well last season, which is, I guess, is kind of a good thing. So hopefully he bounces back, but obviously he will have the shoulder injury hindering him early on. Furthermore, the trade rumors, right? They've been around and they've been here the entire time, and while nothing has happened, and while Pascal is fairly confident for the most part, as it seems, that he won't get moved, and despite the fact that Bobby has come out and said things like, oh, I'm sure Barnes, OG, and Siakam, we can make room for all of them, to an extent, it did seem like bringing in Scottie Barnes on this team might have signaled that Pascal might be available at the right price and he might be tradable. That's not me advocating for him being traded. That's not me saying I want him traded. When you bring in a guy like Scottie Barnes though, who obviously can play multiple positions, but yeah, is a very natural fit at the 4. And you've had trade rumors for this guy for a very long time. To some extent, it does seem like there's writing on the wall. When it comes to closing thoughts with this one, it's a little tricky, if I'm being just quite honest, of what to make of Pascal Siakam's upcoming season. I think for the most part, when it comes to at least the trade rumors and stuff like that, there's a good chance he's probably here at least for this season, I think. Unless the Raptors are just surprisingly bad this season and are just near the bottom of the pack again, at which point, come deadline day, Siakam would actually be somebody I would expect to be available if the Raptors are performing poorly. But if it's the other version of things where things are going very well, a return to, all-star caliber play and, getting that accolade is something that's very realistic for Pascal Siakam. I guess my final point here is things can go one way or the other, and yeah, it's going to dictate a lot. I think the team's success is going to dictate a lot regarding Pascal Siakam and what kind of season he will have with the Raptors and whether or not he finishes that season here with the Raptors. Okay, yeah, that would be it. What do you folks think? Comment below. Let's talk about Pascal Siakam. Obviously, he's a little divisive, I guess, as a figure when it comes to Raptors fandom. Even though, I personally got a lot of love for Pascal, despite, I guess, what you would make of some of the things that I've said here. Pascal's great. Let's not turn this into a Pascal slander session in the comments, or do, and just fight it out amongst yourselves. Yeah, that comment section is there for a reason. Use it. Other than that, like the video. I say it all every video. I will say it again. Super appreciated by me. It takes like a second and makes a massive difference. So if you're doing that, thank you. Other than that, subscribers, I care about it. I always tell you that I care about it. So why not just go ahead and click that button and just make my day? It'd be nice. Yeah, that's gonna do for me here today. I will see everybody next time.